Okay, and then
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so we are recording. So
introduce yourself and your event.
yeah, all right. So my name is Hrodnavar, or mundanely Steve Alter. If you look on Facebook, you'll see me as Steve Alter. And I have very eclectic interests. My interests in the SCA have kind of gone on the lines of, oh, look, a bird. Or like my dog does, oh, look, a squirrel. So I've done a lot of different things. And I've taught classes on English hammered coins and iron making and gingerbread making and all kinds of cool things. And I got interested in curing olives because I was living in Southern California. And just the idea of taking something that is poisonous and really nasty and turning it into a gourmet food item just intrigued me. So I had to try it. And so I have tried all of these methods that I'm going to show on olive curing. Unfortunately, since Oregon really isn't the best place to be pursuing a hobby of olive curing, the raw material is not as readily available as it was in Southern California. There are actually olive groves in Oregon, mostly dedicated to making oil. So I've tried to make contact with a couple of those to see if I could maybe like come and glean some olives sometime, but so far I haven't had any success. So since we don't have the ability, we don't have the in-person ability to show and tell and try different types of olives and all of that, I kind of piled all of my information into a relatively short PowerPoint presentation. And so I'll show you what I've got there. And then after that, I've got some things to show you just to reinforce some of the subjects that I was talking about. Now, in addition to the idea of curing olives, this is I was actually preparing this as a potential entry for a when I lived in Kaid Kingdom Arts and Sciences competition. So I was gathering olive curing methods from period manuscripts and was going to try to replicate several of them and do that as a presentation. So if you look at it from that standpoint, look at the references that I've accumulated. And I just want you to know that all of those references that I've accumulated are available. They're all published in English translations. Many of them are available online if you know how to find them. So this is the sort of thing that you can do sitting at your desk and your computer and just searching the internet. So I will get into this. Let's see. I need to share screen. Share. There we go. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so this is the only illustrated manuscript that I could find that had anything to do with olives. I don't know why 12th century I wasn't aware that 12th century England was particularly into tending olive trees, but I thought that was kind of cool. All right, so first question is, why do olives need curing? If you've never encountered a raw olive, this is a reasonable question. However, if you do encounter one, just bite into it and you will immediately know why olives need curing. They contain a chemical that is really nasty and potentially poisonous if you were able to eat enough of it, which I doubt that anyone could. And it's called astringent. Basically, it like shrivels up the tissue in the back of your throat and your tongue, and it takes about an hour to get it cleaned out once you've done it. So you really do not want to eat a raw olive. So I was curious, how do we get from something that that really tastes so vile and make it something that everybody eats? So living in Southern California, olive trees are everywhere. At least in the suburbs, they were just commonly planted in front yards. The ornamental trees in Southern California are not bred to make edible fruit, so the fruits tend to be pretty small. But you can use these. I started out using these. Usually, it just takes a little bit longer to make them edible, just because they're starting out so bitter, so nasty. But you can, if you have access to someone in Southern California, you can collect a lot of olives, because anybody who has an olive tree in their front yard would love to get rid of the fruit. The ripe fruit are black, and they stain everything that they touch. So, if you're in an area where they're available, you have no problem getting them. And actually, if you attend Great Western War, there are olive trees scattered around the park where Great Western War happens. And it just so happened that the Ontier Royal Encampment was in the middle of one of the groves of olive trees this year. Now, there are varieties that are raised specifically for fruit production. And since they've been produced for that, they're larger and generally less bitter than the closer to native types. You can, in a good year, you can purchase raw olives online and have them shipped to you, if you're really intent on doing this. Unfortunately, this year's wasn't a good year. The two olive groves that I've bought from in the past were affected by wildfires in the last couple of years, and so they weren't selling any of their olives. But hopefully they'll be back up pretty soon. Now, when I was returning from Great Western War, we stopped off in Corning, California, which is our favorite stop for olives. There's a great store there that's right in the middle of olive country, and they happen to be selling sacks of raw green olives. So I picked up a 7-pound sack of raw green olives just for the heck of it. So I'm curing those, and hopefully those will be ready by the Yule celebration. Now, remember, I'm talking about olives for eating, not olives for oil. That's a completely different subject. In fact, the olive oil was a much larger thing than olives for eating, and the vast majority of olives grown in ancient and medieval times went to oil. Eating them at the table was only a kind of a sideline. But that's a subject for a whole different line of research. All right, so when you pick olives, you will very likely get something that looks like this. And you'll have green olives, you'll have black olives, and you'll have olives that are somewhere in between. So green olives are the unripe form. Depending on how old they are, they're either hard or firm fleshed. You typically get those available in September. The black, fully ripe olives are juicy. They're very similar to a grape in consistency, so they're kind of fragile. Getting a box of 20 pounds of ripe olives mailed to me was kind of an interesting experience, because by the time the FedEx guy dropped it off at my door, it was leaking black olive juice, and he really wanted to get it off of his truck. And so as they are ripening, you will see that they start turning. So they're kind of partway. The flesh at this point isn't hard. It's somewhere between firm and soft. And so each of these three different varieties or stages of development will get a different curing process. So I told you there are period sources for curing olives. So I've got them all the way back to 1st century Rome. The Roman sources and the source from Byzantium are all books on farming. So they talk about all types of farming and raising cattle and bees and all kinds of plants and how to raise olive trees. And oh, by the way, they also tell you how to cure the olives. The Islamic publications are all cookbooks. And so these are all things that are available. I have access to either the full book or just copies of the sections that I'm interested in on some of them. The last one, this one called Anonymous, it's a cookbook from 14th century Egypt. It's referred to as the Khans, and I think Khans in Arabic means something like cookbook. But that's been very recently published as a English translation. So that's now available, but you have to hunt it down in the library. So just to point out that just with this group of sources, you can make a pretty nifty arts and sciences project out of this. All right, so any questions up to this point?
I have one.
Yeah, sure.
I see your sources are all non-European, but wasn't Italy a producer of olives as well?
Well, Rome, but other than Rome,
on here.
yeah, other than Rome, I've not been able to find anything more recent. Now, actually, the first one, Columella.
Oh, he's talking about the first olives. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Someone's got a TV that's bleeding through. Maybe they could mute.
Oh, that's right. Hold on, there might be peppers in his food. Oh my God.
Colin, mute.
Yeah, we're kind of surprised. So. Awesome.
Folks, there's a request to mute if you've got a television or conversation going on.
Okay, I got her. I forgot. I own this meeting, so I can do that.
Power.
Okay, so the this first one, Columella, has been an important reference for farming and all kinds of animal husbandry ever since it came out. And it was so popular, it was translated into Middle English in the 14th century. And the modern English translation that I have is actually a modern English translation of the 14th century Middle English translation. And Palladius, 300 years later, is believed to have largely stolen, borrowed a lot of the information from Columella. So a lot of his, a lot of the things that Palladius talks about are like exactly the same wording that you find in Columella, except he does have one one version of curing olives that Columella doesn't have. So I include him as a separate source. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So all these different authors talk about curing olives, but there are just a handful of basic ways to cure the olive, to get rid of that nasty compound. And so they all use pretty much the same methods, and they just differ in some of the specifics. And then also, once you cure the olive, then olives are a very good medium for whatever flavoring you happen to like. So if you like wine, you soak them in wine. If you like lemon, you soak them in lemon, or et cetera, et cetera. So they're kind of like zucchini in that respect, that people generally don't just sit and eat cured olives as they are. They tend to, most people will marinate them in something, and you usually get salt and vinegar in the mix because that helps to preserve them. So I'm going to talk about how to cure them. All of these different versions of curing, once you've done it, you can put the cured olives into a light solution of vinegar and salt, and then add whatever it is you like. And I've experimented with dozens of different additives to get different kinds of flavors. So I'll talk about the different methods for curing here. First one, very simple, is water. The sources that use just water generally use olives that are kind of halfway between green and ripe. And you'll find in most of these curing methods, you want to kind of pierce the skin of the olive. So the traditional method is to crack them between two rocks. Personally, I find that kind of labor intensive and messy. So slicing it with a knife works really well and is a lot quicker. Then basically you immerse them in water. Once I'm done with the slideshow, I'll show you those olives that I've got curing in a bucket. You immerse them completely in water. You want to make sure that the olives are completely submerged. So you put something on top of them just to weight them down to make sure that they're not on the surface. The water, in this case, that you're curing them in will start growing mold. That's a normal thing. You just scoop it off and toss it. You don't want the mold growing in your olives. Then you just change the water regularly. You're leaching out this nasty component, so you just put in fresh water. It took me longer than 3 months to get them to be edible. And to test them, you just taste one, and it will tell you immediately if it's edible. So you just keep going. So I did this once, but it was a lot of work, took a lot of time, and really gave the same product as the next version, which is a brine cure. So with a brine cure, you again, you pierce the olives, and this time you just soak them in brine, which is 1.5 cups of salt per gallon. Now, if you're dealing with unripe green olives, you treat them differently than if you're dealing with the black ripe olives. If you're brine curing green olives, that's the Sicilian style. And if you look for these in a store, you may see them labeled as Sicilian olives or something like that. They will often have the word Sicilian somewhere on the label to describe them. If you're starting with black ripe olives, then I think probably everybody's familiar with Kalamata olives. So that's the Greek style and is generally referred to as Kalamata olive. Kalamata is actually a variety of olive, but it's also kind of a general term used in the West to describe ripe olives that have been cured in brine. Now, those ripe olives that have been cured in brine will lose some of the black coloring and they'll become more purple. Just some of the coloring will leach out. So, and actually they can get to be, depending on what variety you're using, they can end up being kind of white or lavender colored and look kind of ucky, but they actually taste really good. So with the green olives, again, I just slice with a knife down to the seed, just to give the salt the ability to soak in and the nasty stuff the ability to soak out. With the black olives, you don't want to cut them because they're really juicy and they'll just kind of lose their shape if you cut them open. So you want to pierce them with a pointy object. Actually, what I use, if you've ever used the little handles to eat corn on the cob, those little corny things that have 2 little pointers on them, piercers on them, I use those to pierce the black olives. And that's really all you need. The black olives will kind of exchange materials with the solution pretty quickly because they're mostly water at this point. So then again, you immerse them completely in brine. Again, the same thing, this brine will grow mold. So you want to make sure that the olives themselves are covered, change them weekly, and mine have usually been done after about 2 months. So this is at least a month or more faster than the water version. But what you end up with really tastes the same. So I don't really see any particular advantage to going with the water version, except as just an example to say that you've done it. Now, remember I said that olives will take on the flavor of whatever you soak them in. If you just take a brine cured olive without any additional flavor, it actually has a very nice nutty flavor. They actually have a good flavor all to themselves. Nobody ever gets to taste that flavor because we always soak them in herbs and wine and garlic and all kinds of stuff, which is good in and of itself. But I think it's kind of neat to see what the basic olive tastes like. So this is the brine cure. I remember I told you I picked up 7 pounds of raw green olives coming back from Great Western War. I'm curing these in a brine cure. So they're sitting in a bucket right now. Hopefully they should be ready by Yule. Then there's a lye cure. So I don't know if you, Bonnie, you will certainly remember, Anya probably, some of you might not remember. It used to be that you could buy Red Devil lye in the grocery store.
Yep.
And among other things, it was used for cleaning out your pipes. Well, they don't sell Red Devil lye in the store anymore. It's considered a dangerous compound, and oh my God, we can't be trusted with dangerous compounds anymore. Amazing how we all survived to the age that we are. But you can buy food grade lye, which is sodium hydroxide, online. So you have to buy about a pound, and a pound of lye, if you're curing olives, will last you a lifetime. Now with lye curing, you don't pierce the skins. You just put the olives in straight. You only use hard green olives. If you try to do a lye cure with ripe, juicy olives, they'll basically dissolve. So with the hard green olives, you only have to soak them for 12 to 16 hours, depending on the size of the olive. When I was using the olives off of the neighborhood trees in Southern California, 12 hours was plenty. When I used bigger olives from a commercial grove, I needed to go up to 16 hours, depending on their size. And then after a time, you can pull one out and just cut it open, and you can see in the flesh of the olive the progression of the lye. The flesh changes color slightly, becomes a little yellower. So you just want to let it go until the lye has penetrated all the way to the seed. Once you've done that, then you pour off the lye, and actually you can dump it down the toilet because it'll help clean your drains. Actually, my mother-in-law said if you don't have access to lye, you can always use Drano as long as you pick out the little aluminum bits first.
Don't dump that lye down your toilet if you've got a septic system.
Oh, good point. Good point. Yeah, I was doing this when I was on city sewer. I hadn't thought about the septic thing. And also, if you're doing this, lye is nasty stuff. You use lye to turn animal fat into soap. So if you get it on your fingers will feel slippery. Gee, I wonder why that is. The lye is actually dissolving your fingers. So it's not something that you have to fear, you just have to respect it. So after you've done the lye cure, then you have to soak it in water for several days to get the lye out. So once you've got that, then they're ready to use, and that the lye doesn't leach out the offending chemical, it actually destroys it. But it also destroys all the natural flavor of the olive. So lye cured olives, in my estimation, taste like green tofu. Not a dig on people who like tofu, but lye cured olives are need to be soaked in something to make them a food. Now, another aspect of lye curing, oops, where did my, okay. Okay, so let's see, sorry about that. Design. Hold on. I hit the wrong button and I lost.
We're very patient.
Yeah, hold on a moment. Sorry about that. All right, animation slideshow. I can't, oh, there it is. Okay, great. All right. All right, I'm back in business. Does everybody have my screen again?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
so I won't do that again. All right, so I was just talking about lye cured with hard green olives. Now there's a thing that you will find in the store, and if you see olives in like in a salad bar or whatever, you will often see black olives. And they are often referred to as California black or ripe olives. These are not ripe olives. These are made from unripe green olives, exactly like the lye cure that you see above. When the olive is soaked in lye, if you expose it to oxygen, it will start turning black. And so remember I told you about, with the other types of olive curing, you want to have a plate or something weighing the olives down so that they're not in contact with the surface. That's especially true when you're lye curing, because if the olives are floating on the top, the tops of the olives will turn black. So you want to keep them completely submerged. But for the California or black ripe olive industry, they do that intentionally. They actually take the olives, the green olives that are soaked in lye, add iron gluconate and expose it to oxygen. That turns the entire flesh, the entire olive to black. So California black olives are, without any other flavor, are essentially black tofu. They are exactly the same as the green ones. I'll show you a couple cans of those, but you will, you've certainly come in contact with the ripe olive scam. Okay. Now the last curing method that I have is a salt cure, or also called a dry cure. So for this, you would use the juicy ripe olives. You pierce the olives, and remember I told you I use the little corn handles to do that. It's a perfect tool for that. and then you pack them in salt. Basically, a layer of salt, a layer of olives, a layer of salt. You just layer them up as much as you can. Put them in a bucket with a little bit of a raised platform in the bottom so that the juice can leach out. So the juice will leach out, the salty black liquid will collect in the bottom, and it will carry the nasty chemical along with it. This has taken me in the past about 3 to 4 months, again, depending on the size of the olives. And basically, after 3 to 4 months, you just kind of dig one out and you taste it, and it'll tell you if it's done. The final product is kind of hard and leathery like a raisin. And so they would be reconstituted with water and or additional flavorings before serving. So you can get these commercially as well. I bought some for the show and tell portion here. Personally, I like these a lot. You have to kind of leach them. When you're reconstituting them, they're going to be very salty. So you want to get some of that extra salt out, particularly if you have high blood pressure. But I like the flavor of these. They're the olive flavor without any additional amendment is very intense, and they're very I like these. So anyway, that I think that's the end of my presentation. So I'll show you a few things that I've got here. So for the brine cure, particularly if you're doing a lot of this, the cheapest way to get salt is water softener salt. So for like $8, you can get 40 pounds of rock salt. I don't expect to be curing a whole lot of olives, so I can use it on the driveway this winter.
So that's a food grade salts somehow. Oh.
Yeah, and if you use it in a water softener, some of it gets into your water.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, it's just coarse salt.
Okay.
It's exactly the same stuff that ends up in your shakers. So this is my bucket of curing olives. So you see, I've got, let's see. Yeah. So I've got 7 pounds of green olives. You can see each one is pierced. I actually pierced it twice, each one, just to try to accelerate the curing process. But so they're in a brine solution. Just a dinner plate is the perfect size to sit right on top of them and weigh them down. And I don't know. I had a coffee cup. I don't know what I did with it. But basically the coffee cup I'm just using as a weight to hold the plate down. So they'll sit like that. They've been going for a few days now. In a few days, I'll dump out the salt water and replenish it, and just keep that up until they're ready to go. And that's really all that's involved in doing a brine cure. So let's see. Here I talked about Kalamata olives. So this is a and just pick these up at market of choice. These are actually, they're not the best Kalamata olives I've had. They're kind of mushy. I've had better ones that are firmer. But basically these are brine cured ripe olives. So, remember what I told you about the California ripe olive? That's a scam. That's misleading advertising. These are actually real ripe olives. This is the scam. These are what they often call the California ripe olives, and you can get them, just many different varieties. They're very common. They're pretty cheap. And if you see, like this, standard olives in a jar with pimentos in them, they are invariably lye cured. They're just like this. They're basically little spherical pieces of green tofu with a pimento stuffed into them, and soaked in salt and vinegar. And okay, so this is the Olive Pit is our go-to olive place in Corning, California. They're in the middle of hundreds of acres of olive groves, and they have a lot of good products there. So we always stop by when we're driving through. So and then, like I said, once you have cured your olives, then it's the only requirement is if you're going to store them for any length of time, you want to put them into kind of a light brine solution with some with some vinegar, just to preserve them. You can them if you want to. I've never done that, but it is done. Then the heat canning process will help to preserve them for longer. I guess in my hands, they never last long enough to have enough left to actually put up for future use. And then, what you add to them to give them flavor is entirely up to you. I've done probably done 20 different versions of seasonings. So it's wide open from there. So I'm not even going to go into that. You can, if you ever do this yourself, you can have fun with that. And the most of those period recipes tell you things to add. So they give you some pointers on that. Okay, so that's what I've got. Any questions? Anybody?
Well,
Anybody
you sort
have-
of spoiled olives for me, Steve.
Again?
You sort of spoiled olives for me. I love olives. Well, I used to love olives, but all this talk about the lye and the, I don't know, tofu.
Well, so the lye, by the time you get to eat them, the lye is gone. So, I basically, you wouldn't want to eat them if they had, if there was any residual lye. So, it's just part of the processing. But unfortunately, it destroys the real olive flavor. So if you want to, like good olives, you can get from, like, I went to Market of Choice the other day to pick up some things, and they have several varieties of cured olives on their lunch bar setup. And they've got some good olives on that. Actually, their Kalamata olives were better than the ones that I bought in the jar. So if the lye bothers you, then I would recommend go for Sicilian olives or Kalamata olives. But, you know, other than the fact that the lye destroys the flavor, there's really no downside to the fact that the olive was once exposed to lye. It's long gone by the time you get it. So I was going to say, if anybody has an aunt that lives in Southern California or something, then you know you may have a source for lots of olives. Unfortunately, it's a hobby that's going to be difficult to pursue here in Oregon.
I have heard that some people do grow olives locally.
Yeah, there are. I'm trying to find them.
Check the Eugene Gardeners group
Mhm.
on Facebook.
Oh, I should probably ask Pam. Pam would probably
Oh,
know.
there you go. There you go.
Well, that was fascinating. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for attending. You know, like I said, I've done all of these methods and looked at a lot of period documents. You know, even the lye curing, there is a version of the lye curing in period documentation, although they used wood ash.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, basically in medieval times they used wood ash to make soap
Mhm.
because it contains sodium hydroxide.
Right. You mix the
so
wood ash with water, and then you get ding.
Yeah.
Put your hands. Put it in the.
Yeah, it does have to be hardwood ash to produce lye. Softwood won't do it.
Rub it.
Okay, good point.
Good to know.
When you cure it in the lye, does it make some kind of soap with just with the oils and the olives?
I have seen like a little bit of white scum form on the surface of the vat when it's doing that.
Mhm.
That might be the olive being saponified. I'm not sure. I figured it was probably the oil one way or another. But yeah, it would probably do that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Well, that's the origin of Castile soap, too.
Right.
It's the olive oil and lye.
Is it olive oil? Okay.
Okay.
Related industries, in other words.
Yeah, right.
Might want to stop your video.